We have had our unipolar moment, and we are now even beyond a multipolar moment into a multinodal moment. The multinodal aspect of that is, yes, nation states, great power competition, as you describe it. Certainly non-governmental entities, think terrorist groups and the rest who are shaping the international space. And then hyper-empowered individuals who have a big say in what we're doing. Mr. Musk comes to your mind, or the chairman of NVIDIA, as an example. These people have very strong influence on the way we think about it. So the unipolar moment is gone. We're now through a multipolar moment into a multinodal moment. And so how do we then respond to that? If you think about it in terms of just great power competition, though, this is a reversion to the norm. The unipolar moment was one in which that's not historically relevant, really, when you think about it. And now we're back to what is historically something that defines, the human condition. And now we have two peer adversaries, if you want to think about it that way, right? And you have one in China that has not just the military and the scaling, but the staying power and the long-term thinking that makes them incredibly challenging. And this reflects the multi-cycle world we live in, right? So all of us here can recognize that, we have an election cycle, 2, 4, 6. We have a budget cycle. Hopefully it's every 5 years, depending whether you get a budget. You have a media cycle. What's that? 24 hours, 24 minutes? You have the attention span of the American public, perhaps 24 seconds in some cases. But our adversaries have a long view, a 50-year long view, which then I think makes that threat and that challenge even stronger. Now, have they been in a fight in a long time? No. Do they build good stuff? We'll see. Do they build a lot of it? Yes. Do they have structural disadvantages and weaknesses? Sure. But I think that China is the defining threat. It's the one that we need to base everything on, which is why I go back to my comment on we can learn things from Ukraine or the Red Sea or Epic Fury, but we better make sure they're the right lessons when you're facing someone with that strength, that power, and it's a home game for them.
China. I mean, when you look at their bombers, look at their aircraft, they're working on not just fifth, but sixth generation aircraft. PLA rocket force has got reach throughout the first and second island chain. How do you see the Chinese threat?
So as I always felt like the job that I had three hats: service chief, joint chief, and international alert chief. And I felt like my job was to do two things. Number one, it was to arm the Secretary of State to be able to negotiate to a better place with credible military options. And number two, it was, as was previously mentioned, to cause potential adversaries to wake up that day and say, not today. But let me give you a little different perspective on China, because I agree that militarily, we need to arm the Secretary of State and have credible military options so our adversaries say, not today. But in complex world of international relations, it's actually historically significant to be able to agree on certain areas and actually while we disagree on many others. And the example I always think about is in 2014, Russia invades Crimea. And then later on, they invade Ukraine. And we have not had significant diplomatic relations ever since. But for every day, we have not had a single day where we have not lived together in the International Space Station. They're up there right now. When a Russian cosmonaut has a spacewalk, guess who takes care of that individual? An American astronaut, and vice versa. So somehow we found in this complex international relationship to find common interest above the atmosphere, even though we disagree with everything below. Such is the nature of these relationships. So the question with China is, what is our International Space Station equivalent? While we counter them militarily, while we arm our Secretary of State, what are the areas where we can actually find common interest? And I think there are a few. Is it in our best interest, both nationally and globally, to work together to set appropriate guardrails on AI? is it in our common interest, both nationally and globally, to talk about and set guardrails on autonomy and strategic nuclear deterrence? I think there are International Space Station equivalents where we can find, with a strategic competitor that's serious, ways to find common interest and advance on behalf of the world.
I think both Dave and Chris have answered that one there.
Just one comment on deterrence, though. I still think it's a very important question, right? How do we, to use your term, and the term that I've heard quite a lot lately, I've used it myself, and that is, today's not the day, right? What are those things that cognitively create that, today's not the day, right? So military performance and Epifury, perhaps, as an example. One might be the defense industrial base. How strong is the defense industrial base, right? And so as adversaries look, and I bring this up because you mentioned scale and speed of what a country like China can do. If we're able to achieve that, if we're able to show, well, wait a minute, arsenal of democracy and all of that is woken up, today may not be the day from a deterrence perspective.
Yeah.
So there's many aspects of deterrence that apply here, and we should always, I worry a little bit about deterrence thinking and deterrence theory. Where are those young people who are the next Thomas Schillings and folks that are going to do that kind of work? Maybe they're all here
Yeah, I
in this
think there are a
audience.
couple of them in the room here.
Yeah, well, more of that, please,
Yeah.
right? So how do we think about that? Because it's absolutely critical. We don't want to get into that fight if we don't have to.
Yeah. I do want to go shift gears a little bit and go to General Miller first, because part of what we've been talking about, assuming we are, and maybe it is an and, not an or, we're at least in part in a transformational period. Does the U.S. military have the right people, or enough of them, with the right skill sets for this future transformational period?
Right, you know I can only say yes. As part of my retirement, I'm an avowed cheerleader, not a detractor of anything all the guys are doing here. They're going to have to learn fast, so. And I talk about it as I look at the people who we know, many of them. I mean, they worked with us and for us over the years. But it's with the realization that they have to do things differently, at least than I did. Where we are today and where we're trying to move. And I'll give you my example. I was told pretty early on by my lawyers that you can think about it, but if you get involved directly with any company, you're going to quickly elevate a conflict of interest. And if they get a contract down the road, someone's going to protest it, and you're going to be investigated. So what we did essentially was we scared off the most experienced person in the formation, and so you're not allowed to touch this. So you subcontract it down below. And I think that's, one, it wasn't right then, and it was more probably a recognition of my inadequacies than actually what your lawyer was telling you. But today, I almost look at it, if you think, let's use power law. Most of you have probably read power law, and I think we heard a lot of that earlier in the day here. Power law was based on people that were willing to invest funds, de-risk, take the technical risk out of something, and then help find markets. They could probably see a market, but help find a market. But if you think about what does the military, the leaders of the military, I'm talking uniforms now, they're a part of that. It's just because a company out here has a great idea, I believe the military has some role in helping shape that idea so that it's, by the time it hits the force in a scalable way, it's actually what we want. And sometimes we do that well. I had the opportunity to serve with an organization that it always wanted service equipment, because service equipment didn't come with the bill. But if the service equipment wasn't right and didn't work for the job that we had to perform, we'd go invent it ourselves. Not invent it ourselves, but find it and do the combat developments with it. And maybe the service would gravitate towards that or not. But I do believe, like, let's just look at 401 right now with the incredible budget they have. I think most people saw there's an IDQ, I think of $500 million to perennial autonomy. That's a lot of money for I guess, I don't know that I'd call anything Eric Schmidt's doing a startup, but you know, that's a lot of money from the defense side. And my guess is that's more partnership than buying a piece of equipment. And that you're through a partnership, now we're going to develop capabilities that we know need to go to the force. And I think there's, going back to the discerning user, I think there's some opportunity. And, you know, commanders and founders meeting doesn't have to be a legalistic event as you're going forward. I think there's a lot of back and forth there that could get us to capabilities a little sooner.
And it does seem to be that there is more willingness and ability, less lawyers involved in being able to educate.
Yeah, and anybody who's a lawyer here, I'm not attacking you by any means. I really respect my lawyers. But I think it's now people are understanding you can do this without creating a conflict. I mean, you know, there'll be some bad behavior somewhere in the system and everyone will throw up their hands, but you can do this without creating a conflict where, again, very experienced people are talking to, you know, people with a lot of capability and helping shape that capability. And I think it turns the wheel a little faster also.
John Goldfein, you get the first question from the audience.
Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah,
Because I do too.
Okay.
I would like
you
to.
guys can both do that, and then I'll come back to you. It's on this topic, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, great. Well, as a father of a daughter that's serving, I'm pretty bullish on the next generation of leaders, and I think we're incredibly blessed by them. My advice to the current leadership, and I've been talking to several about this, is one of the things that I think we need to do better to prepare the next generation is to educate them in a way that they can see the world through an adversary's lens. We talked in an earlier panel, it was talked about mirror imaging, right? If you don't understand how that culture actually sees the world, then the end result is you'll mirror image. And I think we can go back in our history and look at some strategic military operations that didn't end well. Vietnam, Afghanistan, you could talk Iraq to a certain extent, where we mirror imaged and we assumed that what would motivate us would motivate them. What would deter us would deter them. 4 times in a row as chief, I was scheduled and denied, then canceled to go to China to meet with my Chinese counterpart. And so as a joint chief who was working with Chairman Dunford to offer best military advice, I had as good a knowledge as I could about China, but I never truly understood how to look at the world through a Chinese lens until I traveled to China as a retiree for a Track 2 discussion. And I had this aha moment when I finally understood that our systems of government and our social contracts could not be more opposite. And through that lens of understanding that the Chinese Communist Party was designed to provide security, stability, and order as opposed to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, my aha moment was their behavior became consistent. Not right, but understandable. And so today, after having now traveled twice into China and met my counterparts, the retired counterparts, if I was to ask advice, my advice would be it would be better than my best was previously, because I never knew my Chinese counterpart. I went to National Defense University and I asked for a show of hands just this year. I said, how many of you, this is where we send our best from every service, how many of you have traveled to China in the last 5 years or had a conversation with your Chinese counterpart? Without exception, every hand that went up was international. With a few exceptions, and every one of those Americans were foreign area officers, defense attaches. I love our foreign area officers and defense attaches, but historically, they don't generally become service chiefs and combatant commanders and chairmen. So think about the nature of the challenge. Our generation was raised to not have access to understanding our adversaries through their lens when we were being asked to offer advice. And the question is, how can we do better for the next generation?